If you're listening to this podcast right now, chances are you're interested in improving your health and fitness, and you most likely have an interest in aging well. But what does that really mean? What does it take to age well? What can you do to age well? What should you do? Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a certified personal trainer and a nutrition coach, and I created this podcast to explore these vital topics. Join me each week as we explore what it takes to become the healthiest, strongest version of yourself. My guest this week is Bobbi Parker-Hall. Bobbi is a 62-year-old fitness coach who is passionate about helping women age stronger. Bobbi includes elements of mind, body, and spirit to help women stay strong and active as they age. She's a published fitness model, speaker, and creator of Modern Bodies, an online workout program for women over 40. In this episode, we hear Bobbi's thoughts on exercise and nutrition and how to live our healthiest lives as we age. I asked Bobbi what she was like as a child.
I was just normally active for a young child growing up in the 60s. And we got outside a lot more, I think, than kids do today. And played outside and were gone for long hours, running through the woods, stuff like that, spending the night at friends' house, sleeping outside under tents.
I think most of us over 50 can relate to this. We didn't have the electronic distractions that kids today have. Most of us probably remember our parents telling us to go outside and play, and to be back in time for dinner or before it got dark outside. I asked Debbie what her diet was like growing up.
But then as I aged, we ate a lot of white bread, bologna, stuff like that, Captain Crunch cereal, Fruit Loops, bacon. And so growing up in the 70s, it wasn't like the healthiest type of food. So, I kind of got a little bit heavier then, but I think most kids do at that age. And I think that's normal because you're going to grow. You need that body fat to grow. But what really, then through my teens and stuff, I kind of struggled a little bit. There's also body dysmorphia thing I think that goes on with a lot of women. So I know that would play into that, definitely played into it for me too. But I was never anorexic or anything like that. So, but I always carried that extra 10 or 20 pounds, but I was very aware of it and body conscious of it. It made me not have very much confidence in myself. Then in my 18, 19, 20, then, my metabolism started slowing down. So I definitely saw the scale tipping up and, I was imbibing more at that age, 2021, going out with friends after work, having deep fried shrimp and white Russian.
Right.
And next thing I knew, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I stepped on a scale and I was like almost 160 for me. I was always like 125 through my teen years growing up. So I was like, I just totally freaked out. So that got me really thinking about food and exercise. And I thought about it for a while as I continued to just get a little bit heavier. But then I just did some reading about it and I started watching what I was eating, started eating more protein, started jogging, just trying to find out what I like to do. But I did, and it was mostly, I think, through the food, I did manage to take that off. And so that was good. So then I was fitting into a healthier size. So, but also, so I was the first one in my family really to get fuller. So I have 3 sisters, and my older sister stayed amazingly fit most of her life, but my 2 younger sisters have definitely dealt with their weight and my mother. And so I know, I could just tell that I was one of those 2 that was going to struggle with it if I didn't kind of figure things out. So that just really, and I've always, as a child, been interested in healthy things too. I remember as a young girl, my father showing me in a science magazine the difference between, there was a piece of fish and then some peanut butter, and they were equal amounts of protein. And I remember being very excited about getting stronger as a child, running faster. Stuff like that. So I think I definitely had the makeup leaning towards that as a field that I'd be interested in. But anyway, so at age 28, then I had my daughter, and then I was like, okay, it's time. Got to get serious about this exercise thing. So I started doing a workout on TV, ironically, because now it's so popular, everybody's on media doing their workouts. And so I started working out, and it was a local girl. They had about 5 other girls in it too, and they were all doing aerobics at different areas here in Portland, Oregon, where I live, like Multnomah Falls or downtown on the waterfront. And it was pretty cool. So I did that for about a year. And it really kicked up my metabolism. I got in great shape. Again, I just really followed healthier eating, but watched my portions more this time. And so I was able to get back down in shape to where I wanted to be until I went over into menopause years. And so, it's back and forth through those years too. So,
Yeah. So it
yeah.
sounds like you've been more or less active most of your life.
Mhm.
I imagine maybe a little bit of a dip there, like you said, in your 20s, and
Yeah.
certainly the fried shrimp appetizers and the White Russians weren't helping.
Yeah.
But what was there a specific catalyst that got you? I mean, other than I suppose the catalyst would have been, hey, you're stepping on a scale and you're seeing a number you don't like.
Yeah.
But what resources did you use in order to figure out how to eat healthy? Because let's face it, back then we didn't have the internet, we didn't have iPhones in our pockets, and
Hmm.
I'm trying to think back in the 70s or even in the 80s. I guess most of the nutrition information would have been kind of the USDA or RDA
Hmm.
type recommendations. What did
Hmm.
you use as your guideline for healthy eating?
Well, the first time, like when I was in my 20s, early 20s, I remember just reading a lot about it. And then I just figured out what worked for me. At the time, I was working at Nordstrom too, downtown in Portland, Oregon. And they had this one salad I loved. And so I'd have that every single day, and I'd order it a certain way. So I just ate the same thing once I figured it out. Once you start losing, then you get excited, and then your focus really gets set, and it just snowballs. So then you want to stick to that, and
Yeah.
you don't want to deviate. And then when I was 28, after I had my second child, I had cut out from a newspaper. I think, today it'd probably be considered like a Weight Watchers thing, and maybe it was then too, but it was just like I really learned what portion sizes were, and I tried to stick to those. So I just kept that on my refrigerator for a while, and I just refer to it when I went to get something to eat. And I almost got too skinny because I was nursing at the time too. So if you see pictures of me back then, like my arm was just like a boulder.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like super lean, no body fat at all.
Right. Yeah. And shortly after that, you're going to move into this, I guess, aerobics, right? There's this aerobics on
Yeah,
TV and you're kind of
right.
doing the follow along, right?
Yeah, yes, yes. And so anyway, so then I kept a diary for the first time in my life, and I did for a whole year every day that I worked out. I just marked it down, and it gave me a real feeling, a sense of completion, of satisfaction, I guess. And so that would motivate me too. And then I thought, you know what? I want to try out for this thing, whatever it is. Well, I called about it, and it was done just like down the street from me at the studio. And so he said, come on in. We're going to do another batch of them, and we're having auditions. So I was like, hey, so I did. And I got on the show. And so I loved it. It was so much fun. And I just found out recently that a client of mine, her mother had taped them because I don't have them now. And so she's got them for me
She's got the
on
archive copies, huh?
yeah,
Right
on
on.
VHS.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to
That's
see
great.
those. Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway, so then I did that. And then I went and got my aerobic certification. I thought, well, this is the perfect thing to do while I'm raising 2 kids.
Hmm.
And plus, I want to stay fit, and in shape. So I did that for a few years, just in corporate and raised my kids. Then I went back to school and thought, just get my personal training license. So I got certified in my NAS. And so I started to work and learned about everything those early years. I used to work
Hmm.
at Bally's Total Fitness. I had great clients. They were all my firsts.
Right. Right.
And so I learned a lot. It was, interesting. So you're kind of like a bartender.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
As a,
really
as a
get to
personal
know
trainer.
people. Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You
Hmm.
really get to
Sure
know
do.
them. And a lot of people use it for therapy, so they need to work things out of their body, and they talk a lot while they train. And so it's just good. It's good for you, to move and breathe deep. And
So now that brings you up kind of closer to modern times, I think. But
yeah,
I think I read, I can't remember, maybe it was on your Instagram or on your website. I think you had some health problems, right? You had some autoimmune
yes, yeah.
some, and you overcame those with primarily or
Hmm.
maybe wholly lifestyle changes. Can you tell us kind of what happened there and how
Mm-hmm.
you worked through that?
Yeah, well, I was in a marriage that was difficult for a while, so I think that added to the stress of it until we got divorced. But it was a 30-year-long marriage. We tried hard to work it out and everything. But so I ended up, I was having like these circle things. They were like on my elbows, anywhere a joint was, like on the inside, here around the armpit, the back of the knees, the top of the feet. I was like, what are these? And they would itch. And so then I went to the doctor and they biopsied him. And he said, oh, it's an autoimmune disease. It's called granuloma annulare. And it's just because your immune system isn't fighting it. And so that really got me concerned. I was like, wow, that was just years, sadly, just, not being able to really function very well because you're always trying to fix this problem, going on. And then you get like depressed or, it's just deep problems. And so your mind just doesn't always have the space to open up and really you feel like you can't become who you're really meant to be. So anyway, that was just some difficult years for me, but I really grew during them. And so having this was just a sign of that, I think. And so anyway, about the same time too that I found that out what that was, I think maybe a year later actually, a girlfriend of mine was doing a bikini competition. And I was at the time I was 54 years old. And so she had a great time doing it. And she wanted me to do one with her. And so it was becoming a big thing, for women to do that. And so in fitness. And I was like, yeah, well, sounds fun. At first I was like, no way. But then the more I thought about it, it was really perfect. I needed something new. I needed something exciting and something that just kind of gave me hope and moved me forward. So anyway, I did it. And I think really through just doing that and eating clean and doing something for me that was positive and I felt like made me a better person inside and out and increased my learning maximally to help other people, other women get that thing figured out. So in that way, it was just also great. So anyway, after that, it lasted about 2.5 years, but it was gone and it's never come back.
So it sounds like there's a lot in that story, right? You talked a lot about being stressed,
Yeah.
and in a stressful situation, right? And clearly,
Hmm.
anybody that's been in a marriage that's ending, that could be
Yeah.
defined as one of the major stressors in life, right? And
Hmm.
it's one that can go on for quite some time. And I think that a lot of people sometimes miss the actual damage that continual low grade or continual high grade, even stress has on our body physically, right? I mean, your stress response is a human response. It's a primal evolutionary response, and it's a good thing. You have it, right? I mean, once upon a time, our ancestors would have needed to use fight or flight quite frequently.
Hmm.
And today we hopefully, we don't need that reaction as much, but that same physiological reaction to stress that's just hardwired in us happens whether we're stressed about our spouses, our works, our kids, the traffic, whatever it is. And so we get all this, just all kinds of bad things happening. And when it's chronic stress like that, it can really have some physical manifestations. And it sounds like certainly that was something that you were experiencing. Now,
Hmm.
timeline was this was in your 50s then, I'm assuming?
Yeah. 54.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, and then
2014. Hmm.
right. And then the story goes
Hmm.
on. So you're going to get talked into doing a bodybuilding
Yeah.
competition. So that's great.
Hmm.
Now you've got a purpose and a goal and something that you're working
Yes.
towards. And that makes a
Yes.
big difference
It
when
was
you're trying to
wonderful.
stay motivated and
Hmm.
move. So just backing up to the kind of the stress a little bit, what strategies did you find helpful to de-stress your life and to reclaim yourself, so to speak?
Really, I think that it started there with my first bikini competition because like I said, I was doing something for me. I was stepping outside the box for me. I was really stepping out and more than I ever had because, I raised two kids and, it's all about them. But there does come a time in your life when that opens up and it can be about you more and what you're interested in and more so now today than ever. And so when I got used to that, that gave me more confidence. And so I was able to step out of other things in my life that were not good for me and that were keeping that stress on, like, unfortunately my marriage. But all the days that were spent stressed are now spent, in an incredible immune building happiness. Because
Yeah.
now, things have really changed for me and my relationship is fantastic and I'm married to a fantastic man and it's been 5 years. So I
Yeah.
mean, you want to get through those first years
Yeah. Right.
in a
Right.
third
Okay.
marriage. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay. So I love that story. And I like that you talk
mhm.
about that kind of immune building sort of
Yeah.
happiness. So let's back up a little bit. So you get talked into doing this bodybuilding show, and obviously now we're going to get into some pretty serious resistance training, right? We're going to move away from aerobics and now we're picking up
Yeah.
barbells and
Right.
dumbbells.
Right. Right.
Were you already familiar with training heavy or bodybuilding type exercises before you decided to do this?
Yeah, yeah, I was because, I went through a lot of training and continued to learn. One of my first best friends in personal training was a friend that had been married to a guy who was a personal trainer who owned a club up in Seattle. And she had all the moves, she knew everything. And so she really streetwised me to everything. And as far as what to do, how many reps, and stuff like that. She just would hit it hard and she'd have people wiped out in like 20 minutes, I remember. But, she did it in a good way.
Hmm.
But she was more of a Julian Michaels kind of trainer, I'd have to say. We trained every day together for like over a year, and I learned from her so much. So that was great to add to like my NASM training too. So yes, I always did weights, but I kept them light, but mostly I also still had that under belief. Oh, I need to do more cardio, and stuff like that. And then the biggest thing for me is I never really had the food perfectly figured out for me to keep me where I wanted to be. And so, learning about my macros, doing the competition in a healthy way, is what really helps. Yeah,
Yeah, big time for especially when you're talking about bodybuilding, you're going to be very precise
yeah,
with your diet and with your macros and how much you
yeah.
eat and how much of what you eat, and then you're going to manipulate that while you're trying to build muscle and then
Right,
strip
right.
that fat back off or to lean out. So
Yeah.
certainly you would have gotten quite a crash course in what works for you nutritionally as you went through that process,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. But I have to say too, I mean, you do have to eat clean. So if you're coming over from like a lifestyle of just kind of eating somewhat healthy and sometimes you find out from people what their version of healthy isn't what, it really should be. And so, but you've got to develop that palate for other kinds of things that will satisfy you that are much more, I don't know, macro friendly or just healthier.
Yeah, certainly. And I think starting with whole foods would be a good place to kind of eliminating the processed foods would be like kind of step one. That's kind of a 101 thing that people can do right away. And to
Yeah.
your point, learning to measure and weigh your food and
Mhm.
know and track your macros. And if you hate doing it, only do it I tell people just do it for a month, even if
Yeah.
you only did it for a week, really, because most people have
Yeah.
no idea
Yeah.
what they're eating. They don't know how much they're eating. They don't understand what a serving size is. They clearly don't have an idea of what percentage of what they eat comes from protein or carbs or fat.
Mm.
And frankly, a lot of folks don't understand what the difference is, right?
Yeah.
You quite often somebody's trying to say lose weight, then I understand maybe you got to be in a calorie deficit but that's it, right? I just need to eat less.
Yeah, and that can
Okay.
work,
That can
but
work, right? I mean, yeah.
for a
I mean, the
while,
math is
but
pretty simple, and the calories
yeah,
in, calories out. But their
yeah,
nutrition can be a little more complex than that as
yeah,
well. So,
yes,
yeah, and
exactly,
certainly healthy
exactly.
nutrition. Yeah,
Yeah, mhm, yeah, most people are afraid of it, I find most
hmm
people are afraid
it's
of,
a little daunting. Yeah.
yeah, and it's really I always say, "If I can do it, you can do it,"
Okay.
So, I just try and help them understand it as best as possible, so
Yeah.
but yeah,
Well, I
so
want to back up from the nutrition just a little bit because you had said something about when you were training for your bodybuilding and I'd asked you about the weights. You had said, yeah, and sometimes in my mind I thought, well, I might still need the cardio. I know you work with a lot of women. Do you encounter the fear of the barbell or the dumbbells or lifting weights with women? I know a lot of women tend to, oh, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get big muscles. I want to be lean and toned and
Mhm,
sexy. And they equate that with the treadmill or with really light weights, but they don't equate that with squats and deadlifts
mhm,
and other
mhm.
work with a barbell. What are your thoughts there on strength training for
Yeah.
women?
I used to get women that I think thought, or I know thought I was too muscly and did not want to be as muscly as me. And but then there were women that were attracted to my body type and wanted to be like me too. So, but now I find that I think women want to be bigger. I mean, they're okay with bigger muscle now. And, it's like that's what we see in a lot of the magazines and stuff too.
Hmm.
I mean, you still
It
see the
is.
really, really skinny kind of model too with the flatter muscle. I don't see it as much. I mean, I see women like the club that I belong to and work at, everybody's 45, 40 plus, and those women are lifting pretty heavy. But I have to say, I do see that a lot of them are like in the Zumba too. Those are really
Mhm.
full classes, but also a lot of them are into more functional kind of training.
I think
So,
it's fair to say
yeah,
that it's changing, right? I
yeah,
think that probably, women in weightlifting is even going back 10, 20 years certainly was less common than it is now. And there's a,
yeah,
a number of reasons for that. One of which is just there's more women out there doing that and showcasing it. Certainly social
right.
media kind of helps. And then you've got your,
Mhm.
your group fitness that are the CrossFits and whatnot that are putting barbells into ladies' hands. And so certainly that seems to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
changing as well. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, but yeah, I see what you're saying. There's definitely still a huge majority of women that are on the cardio machines eating 1,000 calories,
Right.
believing that. I've
Right.
seen that too. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yep.
and it is the barbells that shapes the body, so
Right, right,
definitely.
and that's what I was getting at, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing that. Well, actually, as opposed to guess, let me just let me just ask
Yeah.
you, what are the kind of services and coaching packages that you offer women that come to you?
So it's really whatever they need. Like right now, I've got somebody that's training for a wedding. She's going to go to Cabo San Lucas and get married, in May. So she wants to be in rip roaring shape,
Yeah.
So people like that and having some kind of life event big thing coming up, graduation, turning a certain age, that type of stuff. So I have my live training, but I also then have online programs for
Right.
women too. And I'm on Instagram and Modern Bodies Fitness. And then you can also find me on Facebook. And my website is bobbyparker-hall.com. So,
And I
and
can I can drop all that into the show notes as well, so folks
yeah,
can go there and
yeah,
find that. But yep.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, you that's a good point. So we're recording this here in February of 2021, and hopefully
yeah.
we're at the end of this COVID madness. But a lot
Mhm.
of folks are, there's still big parts of the world that gyms are locked down still. And I believe on your online program, that's a no equipment necessary kind of thing. Is that right?
Oh, my
Or
online program, it's well up to 12 pounds is what's recommended. And
got
then
it.
also like one of those bands, the hip circle
Mm-hmm.
bands for glute work. And let's see, a mat. But yeah, you can use no equipment too. So it was good timing. I filmed it just like a year and a half before COVID hit. So
Oh, okay.
but
Well,
so
good.
it
Yeah, I
is in
wasn't
home.
sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if that was something you did in response to the pandemic. You've
Yeah.
already had that
Yeah.
already up. So, yeah,
Right.
women could go on there and with no or very
Mhm.
little equipment could kind of
Yeah.
follow along
Uh-huh.
and get coached.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And you buy it once and it's always there, and women stay in touch with me and check in and see how they're doing. So, yeah. And then there's Modern Bodies Tribe too on Facebook. And so that's where like it's like the Facebook group. So,
Okay. So, what I'd like to know is what do you do for yourself? What does a typical workout week look like for you now?
okay. So lately, it's like 1 day a week at the gym with the heavy weights. And then I've got weights here at home too. So, but it's not like a gym workout, but I do have heavier weights. So I'll work out at home, usually about 2 or 3 times a week on my own. And that's a good week because there's some weeks I only get 1 day a weekend, and walking or something.
Hmm.
So it's been kind of sketchy sometimes. But it's been COVID, and unbelievably, everybody's kind of been shocked. And so we're all kind of rearranging our lives, but also it's a great time just to go for your fitness because you have more time. So
Yeah.
I think once the shock and the dust kind of settled, everybody was like, okay, this is a great opportunity to do this. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of personal trainers, we got really busy,
Yeah,
so
well,
yeah,
I think you're right. I think there's the quarantine 15. There's a lot of folks that, as
right.
opposed to taking the time during this craziness to get healthier, they got the opposite, right? They got unhealthy, or they gained a little bit of weight. So you're right. I think folks are starting now that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully some of the madness is subsiding, to
Mhm.
start looking at getting healthier again.
Yeah,
So it sounds like you're working out fairly regularly. Obviously, you're in great shape.
yeah,
What
thank
are
you.
your thoughts for recovery? What do you do to
Oh,
recover, to keep up all this activity that you're doing?
okay, I do a lot of foam rolling. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the evening, we usually, we'll just like spend some time together, watch a movie or something. So I always have a basket next to the fireplace, like my foam roller, my mat, like all the little therapy things that I need. And so I'll just get on the floor and maybe I'll do like 10 minutes, or maybe I'll do like an hour of stretching and or some yoga. And so that helps a lot. And then I also recently bought one of those hyper ice things because I have had something with my shoulder for a while. So it's
Mm-hmm.
better now, but it was a 6-month ordeal. So that was a setback too. And so I went to a chiropractor and got some gentle work done. And he really helps with some like muscle stimulation and stuff like that. And then just my own knowledge of stretching, and then just herbal remedies on my
Mm-hmm.
shoulder and stuff like just taking like arnica. And that is amazing for helping your body heal. So sometimes some good CBD, stuff on there too. Some
Yeah.
great, great stuff for that. So
So it sounds like
yeah.
a lot of soft tissue work, maybe some yoga work,
Hmm.
some herbal
Hmm.
type things. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just keeping after it too. So
Right, right. And we touched on the nutrition piece, but I would imagine your nutrition's a big part of staying recovered, staying healthy, being ready to get back
mhm.
in the gym. What does your diet look like these days? How are you eating in a specific prescribed way, or what's your overall
Um,
philosophy on how you eat?
I usually try and eat pretty clean. Like I'll have oatmeal in the morning, and I've just grown to like things like this. And this is a good day. And then I'm having maybe one egg with a couple egg whites scrambled and some olive oil spray. So, or you could definitely use some kind of healthier like ghee, or some type of, there's some really nice vegan healthy thing butters out there too. And then I'll try and get in. I don't want to drink too many protein shakes, but if I am trying to push ahead, I'll add protein shakes. And so I'm definitely doing those now. So those are great mid-morning. And then I'll have like maybe quick peanut butter sandwich, on sourdough bread. I love, and it's a really good bread to eat if you get a healthy one, and
Mm-hmm.
it tastes really good. It's
Yes.
enjoyable. So you can smash some raspberries on there. So that's a great, pre-workout too, or even after workout thing to eat. But anyway, and then I'll try and stick towards like chicken and some sweet potatoes, or I have a rice cake addiction. And so that's where I go and I just have to munch,
Yeah.
so I'll try and, keep a count on them, but it doesn't always, this count can go over real fast. So I also love a good Quest bar. That's my other, indulgent. And some days I eat way too many.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So,
better than a candy bar,
it's
right?
human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I've just kind of learned that, hey, I could be eating a candy bar, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't want to, it's like you have to kind of try and curb those things,
Yeah.
so
It's
you
still
can
a processed food, but yeah.
still, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Better than a Milky Way, but yeah.
yeah, a little
Right.
better.
Not the same as maybe a kale smoothie, but
Right.
right.
It's
So
more the bad sugar in it. That's the
yeah,
worst thing.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
sucralose. you know.
Well, so it sounds like a lot of whole foods. You're not
Mhm.
avoiding carbs. It sounds like you had a pretty good
Oh,
mix in there of
no.
what you
Oh,
described of
gosh,
carbs, fats,
no.
and protein. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And that, well, poor carbs are getting such a hard time right
I
now.
know.
And, it seems like people, especially folks that are looking to diet and they just go online and they see something about keto or low carb, and the carbs you were describing in there weren't I think part of the problem with carbs is a lot of the carbs are those really heavily processed foods. And
Mhm,
fair
mhm,
enough, those carbs get rid of. But you were talking about things like rice cakes and oatmeal and sweet potatoes. And
mhm. Yeah,
nobody's getting obese from eating too
yeah,
many sweet potatoes and too much oatmeal, I don't think.
yeah.
But
No,
certainly they
I
are
think they
from
process it.
Pop-Tarts and and
Yeah,
macaroni and cheese out of a box and all these other things, just
yeah.
not so much, right? Yeah.
I think you're right, yeah. And like you said, learning your macros so you know what you're eating, you know?
Right.
So,
Yep. I think that's a good exercise for everybody to do at least once. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. So you've been active and working out, been a trainer for a long time. Talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on motivation, the role of motivation, and how maybe the other side of that coin, discipline.
so, yes. I think people, they need a plan laid out for them sometimes if it's not an area they've delved into and they're not familiar with. So that helps. And having a window of time to do it in, I think is great motivation too. Sometimes it can take people a year, but or maybe they want to do it in chunks, or sometimes just having a 12-week set or 16 or 20 and knowing that you're just going to get down to business and figure it out, during that time. And if you've got somebody you can learn from and they can help you through it and do their best to make sure you're successful, then it's good. It's great. So,
Yeah, so I hear you saying obviously setting a goal, having a
yeah.
timeline, and then in that having a coach or a mentor or somebody that can educate you on what you should
Yeah.
do and how you should progress, but also I hear in there kind of like holding you accountable as well, right?
Right.
For to
Right.
keep people motivated. So I think what happens is everybody's motivated on January 1st. We're all
Uh-huh.
the whole planet's making New
Mhm.
Year's resolutions, but sadly by the end of January, most of us are no longer in our resolutions. And what happens is that motivation was there, but I think
Mhm.
people don't realize motivation is great for getting started, but it's that discipline
Mhm.
to keep going. And to your point, it's that structure as well. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people probably start, like you said, without a clearly defined goal or timeline, and that just if your
Mhm.
New Year's resolution is just to lose some weight or to get back in shape, those are great goals, but they're kind of squishy. They're not well defined.
Right.
They're not
Right. Right.
measurable. So
Yeah, you stay on that hamster wheel. So,
yeah,
and
yeah,
use those times in your life. It's good if you've got something big coming up. It's like it puts a little
hmm
pressure on you on the other
right,
end. And so, like a wedding or
yeah. You had mentioned
a
that earlier.
child's
Yeah.
wedding, right?
hmm
And so you can use that time frame to really get it figured out and to make it work. Because you got that pressure on the other end. You have to, like me, I had to be up there. You have to be up
Yeah.
on stage at a certain time. You have to look as best you can. So
That will certainly motivate you. Yeah, if you
it's
know you're gonna
very
step up on
motivating.
step up on a stage with a bikini with everybody judging your body,
Right.
that's pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah.
good motivation to stick to your
Yeah.
plan, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
All
Puts a
righty.
fire under you.
That
Yeah.
will definitely light a fire. Yeah. So I saw on your website you talk a lot about kind of this holistic approach to health, and we've discussed some of that already, right? There's the very obvious pieces, the knobs that we can turn, and that would be nutrition and exercise. Talked a little bit about recovery and some of those things. What else do you put into kind of this healthy, holistic aging? How does somebody age and be? I think you called it ageless health. How do you have ageless health in a holistic sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it just comes down to how you're going to, how you want to feel and move. And I mean, you want to feel and move well for a long time. And so I think definitely the earlier you can start exercising, the better, of course, but start moving and breathing and stretching and then just eating healthy, eating clean. I think too, just making sure that you're happy in life And, taking ownership over our health, I think is, and what we're eating is huge. So I want to help people, like you watch people and what they eat. And I'm just talking about like the very general public. And it's hard to figure the food out. So,
It is.
yeah. hmm
It really is.
But
It's hard to cut through all the clutter. There's so much information out there that you can see how somebody who's not a nutritionist and not a personal trainer, how it can just
mhm,
be almost overwhelming, right? Where do you start?
yeah.
Where do you go? So yeah,
hmm
it can be tough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But,
what do you say to, let's say a 60-year-old woman comes to you, she's deconditioned and she doesn't have an athletic background,
mm,
and maybe she finds you through your coaching services, or she's listening to this podcast and she thinks, I'm ready to get started, but I just don't know where to start. How do you start somebody at say 60 plus on their fitness journey to reclaiming their health in the way that you're kind of talking about this ownership of health? How do you get them started on that path?
well, usually we talk about their food. And so they know they got to change their food. And so we're talking about that right away and figuring out their macros for them. We're getting them on MyFitnessPal. I'm getting on Zoom with them. We're going over their food, putting it in MyFitnessPal. I make sure they understand that to get started. Then I take what they like to eat and I show them kind of an example of what their day could look like. And then maybe 1 or 2 days. And then I turn it over to them with serving sizes and with healthy things they can choose from in the fats, carbohydrates, and proteins group, stuff like that. So, yeah. And so I just teach them about that, tell them you got to give up the alcohol if you've got 12 weeks and you want to get a certain place, then you can add
Yeah.
it back. You can kind of add it back in sometimes if you want to. So, but you just got to account for it and know what to drink.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, first things first, you're going to start with diet, right?
Yeah,
Going to
yeah,
find out
first things first,
how
right,
they're eating there and just start cleaning that up.
right.
Now, are you going to drastically change things all at once for this person, or you're going to lead them on a slower journey and gradually make smaller changes? What are your thoughts there in terms of nutrition, lifestyle?
If it's gonna be a lifestyle change, then it has to be realistic, so I try and take their food, from their life, and of course, they know they can't be going out to McDonald's or, that type of thing, so just take food from their life, and I try and incorporate it, into a meal plan for them, and of course, there's gonna be some sacrifice. But yeah, it's totally up to the person too. They may not be able to. Sometimes they can't handle it all at once, or it's just
Right.
the macros are just too daunting. And so then I try and work with them with just a meal plan, and
Hmm.
that doesn't always work as well, I think. But they hang in there. People hang in there. It doesn't always happen for everybody all at once. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I love
sometimes
that
I
you,
just
oh,
part of their journey too.
yeah,
So
that's fair
sometimes I
enough. Right.
yeah, you learn something from somebody and yeah, you move on, so, but
Yeah, I'd love that you start
come
with
back.
yeah, that's, or they come back. Yeah, that you start with what they're already eating and what they like to
Mhm.
eat, and
Yeah,
it's not a whole lift and shift here. No, 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 you can't eat any of that anymore. You're going to eat this now, which
right.
that probably is not that's not destined for success or long-term success at any rate. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when, let's say, okay, so you've got this woman in, we've worked on
Mhm.
her diet
Yeah,
for a little while and she's starting to eat better and she's starting to feel better. Where does the movement come in? Do you introduce that
yeah,
at the
that's right.
same time, or are we
Yeah,
going to wait a little while? When does
yeah.
the movement come?
Oh, no, the movement comes in right away too.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's so.
So, yeah, definitely. And so I'll start her. Well, we'll figure out where she's at. It may be, 1 or 2 sessions. I can see how she moves and figure out her weights, what's appropriate for her. And of course, I assess all of their things that they have wrong, whether they've broken an ankle or,
Yeah.
whatever's happened to them in life, because that's going to affect you, and your movement. And work with them on injuries and foam rolling and stuff like that, and show them how to warm up if you have, like if your knees hurt and stuff like that. I really like to work with women on, of course, glutes. Those are fun to work, and you get such great benefit, and it's Also, it's just nice to be on the floor too, doing a lot of home exercises. It's comfortable, I think, to be on the floor doing things like that, and then for quite a while, and then getting up and then doing squats and stuff like that. So once their body's just really nice and warmed up. So in the beginning, that's kind of, how
Right,
I like to
right.
work. So yeah. But if they're younger and they're more fit, jump right into things
Just jump
faster.
into it.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Right.
Mhm.
And that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you're obviously going to screen the individual. And like you said, certainly with a 60 something year old woman deconditioned coming in, she's
Mhm.
liable to have, to your point, she could have injuries, she could have some misalignments and some other things. And so she's going to have steep learning curve kind of
Mhm.
neurologically, maybe just getting these movements. She could have some
Yeah.
mobility issues you got to work through. Whereas to your point, if somebody comes in a little younger, or maybe they were active in, say, before they had kids or whatever, and they wanted to get back into it, might be able to go at them a
Yeah.
little more
Yeah.
aggressively. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, and
Certainly.
it depends on where I'm training, if it's online, if, what equipment they have
Hmm.
available to them
Right.
and for a while I was doing a lot of this online training where I could see them.
Hmm.
And so now I've just found a nice pace with it, and I have my other training. So I kind of like to be diversified.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice. I just assess where they're at. So if I've got them at the club, that's even better because then we've got the heavy weights there. So that's the perfect place.
Sure.
So
And you can see, and you can, in real time, you can correct movement, et cetera.
yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm,
obviously that would be the
mhm.
best case scenario.
Yeah,
But it's,
yeah.
I guess,
So
I mean, certainly the virtual training sounds like you were doing it before COVID, but
mhm.
as consumers of fitness products and
Yeah,
as deliverers of these products, we're all figuring this out now, this new world
yeah,
of kind of
yeah.
virtual. If you're a coach and you don't have a virtual practice, you better you better get busy, right?
Oh, I know the
Um,
pressure's on, man.
yeah, yeah, right.
I know. So,
Well, Bobby, you've accomplished a lot.
oh, thank you.
What's next for you? What do you
Yeah.
have on the horizon?
Oh, let's see here. I have so many dreams and plans. So, but I mean, I would love to get an online Zoom class going. I think that'd be fun to connect with women
Hmm.
because I do find being back at the club again, it's just fun to connect with people live. And everybody's doing the Zoom thing. And I just would love to do that too. But so that's kind of a future thing I'm thinking about and starting to plan. And then I'm aiming at June for a competition. So I'm super excited about that. But
And
so
that's a
that,
bodybuilding competition, just to be clear, right?
yes. Uh
All
huh.
right,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. And then just, yeah, continuing to grow my business. And right now I'm just really loving working one on one with people.
Hmm.
And so, I can't work with as many people because it's just not, you only have so much time. So, but it's great. So it's been great. I've just been really enjoying that process. So when you jump in this online business, you're like, I want to have all these blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's just kind of nice to sit back and slow down a little bit. That's just kind of what I've
Hmm.
been doing and just, since COVID. And it's been great. Business is coming, and so I'll gear back up and go fast again, too. But
Right, right.
right now it's just kind of nice where it's at. So yeah,
Well, great. And that
yeah,
we've mentioned your Instagram, your Facebook, and your
hmm,
website. And like I said, I'll drop all that in the show notes.
yeah,
Is that the best way for folks to reach out to you? I know you have obviously a
hmm,
great presence on
yeah.
Instagram, so they can
Thank
reach
you.
out to you, and obviously on your
Yeah,
website, I'm sure you've got a
mhm,
contact form there as well, right?
yeah, yeah, yes. All on my Instagram's the best. Yeah.
Instagram's the best.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so folks, if you want
hmm,
to connect, that's the best way to do is to connect on
definitely.
Instagram.
Hmm.
Well, Bobby, as we're wrapping up here, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your wisdom with us. You
Thank
are a
you.
fantastic ambassador for healthy aging. And I
Thank you
just
so
encourage
much.
you to, yeah, please just keep doing what you're doing. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Let your light shine. So
Thank
wish you all the
you.
best in thanks. I wish you all the
Mhm.
best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you. You too. I really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, that's our show for today, folks. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends and please consider subscribing and giving us a 5-star review. All the show notes and much more are available at our website at silver-edge.com. That's silver-edge.com. So until next time, stay strong.